Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I do thank you for joining us today. It's our Wednesday edition of New Hope Radio. Glad to have you come aboard. Hope your week is going okay. We're in the middle of the week. Got a few more days to go. Want to remind you about our service tonight. Our series is entitled The Doctrine of the Last Things, and we're talking about the second coming of Christ tonight. Actually, the preliminaries, all the things that are going to take place before the second coming. So you can join us tonight at 7 as we get ready for worship. Then we jump right into the message. And if you can really come early, 6:15, we have a time of prayer as well. Okay, so thank you for joining us today. You might be listening on 1590 AM dial, 92.7 FM, or newhopecc.tv. Click Facebook or YouTube. Karen is already checking in. Rebecca is checking in. Aaron is here to meet you and greet you from Florida. He's manning the home site from Florida, so say hi to him and let us know where you're watching from as well. Thank you for joining us. Very special program today. Been waiting all week for this. Mark is checking it. Mark needs this program today, Mark. Pay attention. Straight Ahead Ministries. Scott Larsen, Ed Machado, they are here. They have an incredible ministry, and we're going to talk about that today. Guys, thank you for joining me today. Say hello to our audience.
Thanks for having us.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Dave.
And we're going to talk about Straight Ahead Ministry, which is a really, I'll tell you what, it's an important ministry, and I'm glad you guys thought of it, because I don't know anybody else that does what you do. So, Scott, let us know, what is Straight Ahead Ministries?
Yeah, Straight Ahead Ministries is an international ministry focused on reaching juvenile offenders with the love of Christ. Many people don't know, here in Massachusetts we have 60 places where kids are locked up. Nationally, there are 1,300, and it's a key time when someone gets locked up, obviously. Life is stopped for them in many ways. You get clean. Grandmother's prayers are catching up with you. And it's a turning point for a lot of people. The sad part is, across the United States, 1,300 juvenile jails, 70% have no kind of ministry happening in them. And people might think, well, these are kids, so it's like a public school, you can't go in. But actually, it's not the case. If you hold young people in confinement, you can't, by law, withhold religious services. And we go around the country. We have affiliates. Next month, we're in Florida, in Georgia, in New Mexico, and in Pennsylvania, training those who are called to do this kind of work and trying to connect them with facilities where kids are locked up. And when we offer these kind of programs, you know, often about a third of the kids will come out. You know, it's like most of us want prayer when we're in trouble. So if I got court coming up tomorrow, that's an opportunity for prayer. Things aren't working very well, and so where's God? And it's not like kids come and they're angry about God. They're coming and they're usually repentant. And now, God, I can't believe I broke all these promises. And so it's a beautiful time to be in somebody's life.
What areas of the country, or are they all pretty well balanced, but you see a greater need than others? Does New England have a greater need than say the Pennsylvania areas or down south, or is it all pretty well spread out?
Yeah, so in New England, we started 31 years ago, and there were no Bible studies in the lockup facilities in New England. In fact, they even had policies that said they couldn't have them. And I left my job as a stockbroker. I felt the call to work with leadership youth. My wife had moved here from Denmark, had gone to college, and felt God calling her to work with this population. She was doing that in Minnesota. And so today, 31 years later, pretty much New England has the most saturation of Bible studies. We're going down to the southeast in a few weeks, and so South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, you'd say the Bible Belt for sure. Down there, the vast majority, 80% of the places where kids are locked up, 180 juvenile facilities in those states plus Florida, 80% have nothing. And you have churches everywhere. So sometimes as people don't know how to get involved, that's why we started this movement called Every Youth, Every Facility. that's a lot of times the case, and sometimes just we as Christians we get so focused on all the things going on in our own life and
It's
in
true.
our own churches, where Jesus said, you know, going to prison as though you were a prisoner. How you treat those in prison and the homeless, etc., is how you treat me. And so we call people to, I guess, the Samaria call of Acts chapter 1:8, which is the outcast. But it's you think you're going to help somebody else, but anybody who's ever gone to Haiti or anywhere that outside of themselves, a homeless shelter, comes back and says, "Wow, they ministered to me more than I ministered to them," and that's the way it is in juvenile facilities every time.
And Ed, you work more closely with the inmates, more one-on-one, helping them assimilate, so to speak.
Right. I'm the local site director, so I kind of run the reentry site, but we do everything from engage the youth while they're incarcerated, and sometimes pre-that sentencing and all the way back to the community and through their whole transition. Yeah.
Let's hear some success stories, some things that I'm sure it really thrills you guys when all the effort that you put into a young man. Is it mostly men, mostly males that you guys are working with right now?
Well, actually, it is mostly men. About 10% of the kids locked up are girls, but girls is the increasing population. So, in the world, 1 out of 3 women and girls who are locked up are in the United States. 1 out of every 3.
Wow.
1 out of every 5 in general. You know, we only have 5% of the world's population, but we have actually 25% of the world's prisoners incarcerated. So the girls and boys both. But when we began in 1987 and started working with youth who were locked up doing Bible studies, we opened a home in 1990 for some to come out that didn't want to go back home or couldn't go back home. Some of those early ones went back home. They were shot and killed by rival gangs. But even from that early crop, you know, from 30 years ago, one young man who was a gang member in Lowell, and fortunately was tried as a juvenile and not in the adult system. He was part of a gang murder. He was there. He didn't do it, but a lot of kids don't understand if you're with somebody who did it, you're an accomplice. Same offense. And he had a dream, you know, back in 1988, a crazy dream, be a lawyer like his lawyer was to him. He said he was like a father figure to me. Before that, my father figure was a 17-year-old leader of our gang. And he was tried as a juvenile, came to Bible study, had never been in a Bible study, gave his heart to Christ, and then moved into our home when his time had run up and he was looking for a placement. He'd met his father while he was in prison for the first time. And his father already had 10 other kids, wasn't looking to add to the family. His mother's a heroin addict, kind of bouncing around shelter to shelter. So he lived with us, and you know, I didn't really believe in a dream that a kid who dropped out of school in 8th grade was locked up is going to be a lawyer, but that's what he was committed to. He wanted to be there for kids like him. So sometimes when he would fall off, I'd say, well, remember, you're a lawyer, you know, you're a lawyer, Brian. And it got him through. He ended up going to Wheaton College, and not the one here in the South Mass, but the one in Chicago. Very hard to get into. And he was a brilliant kid, though. He hadn't had much schooling, but graduated there with a 3.8 grade point average and got into law school at Seton Hall University on a full scholarship for his academics. Aced the bar exam, but like a lot of these kids run into, the system sort of knows what to do when you keep failing, but it doesn't know what to do when you succeed. And, you know, where am I going to go during spring break and all that kind of stuff. And so he'd come back to our home, and we had to navigate. We had other kids in there, and the state was like, well, you can't have a former felon living with these guys. Well, you know, he was one of them. He's part of our family, so we navigated that. But when he passed the bar exam, he had to go before the Ethics Commission, and they voted him off because of his past offense, that he couldn't be a lawyer. And so he wasn't. Worked in a title company for several years and got married, was having children. probably 4 years in, and said, Brian, I think you should go for that again. And he was intimidated because of the questions they asked. And he went again, and we testified, and this time they passed him.
Oh,
and
great.
today he, well, in New Jersey, he heads up one of the largest agencies that serves youth coming out of prison. $40 million budget. He's on the board of our organization as well.
Incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ed knows many down here on
Sure.
the South Coast.
Yeah, we've enjoyed various successes over the years. One of the more recent ones that I really had the privilege to be part of, a young man that I had met while working reentry in the local Bristol County House of Correction. I had worked with him and coached him along for about a 2-year period of his entire sentence. And just last was in March of 2017, we ran one of our programs called Ready for Life, which is pretty much a 3-day, really intensive retreat that we hold with the inmates or the detainees, whatever, on the inside. And we had, after this young man had been through the program and got his feet on the ground, gave his life to Christ, and he had the opportunity to come back into the jail, a place that he only imagined he would ever see again by reoffending. And it was so authenticating and validating for him to enter back into the facility as one of our co-facilitators for the program. And I remember clearly, walking back to the trap, walking back to that door that slides shut, the heavy metal door, the anxiety on him. And just like, wow, this was a place of trauma for me. It was a place of desperation. And once he got back in there and started interacting with the guys that he knew from the street, guys that he formerly shared a room with or cohabitated on the unit with, and he saw that he had something to give back, it was so empowering and validating for him. So he remains plugged in with us to this day. Wow. And goes into the DYS facilities and so forth and speaks to youth.
That's good fruit. Good fruit.
Powerful stuff, yeah.
Yeah. We got a special program today with Scott Larsen, Ed Machado with us from Straight Ahead Ministries, and it's a really important ministry. We got a lot of folks that might not be aware of what you guys do and who you are. So let's tell them, why are we here? Why are we here on the radio today, Scott? What do we want them to know about Straight Ahead Ministries?
Well, Straight Ahead is really a conduit between churches and Christians and places where kids are held in confinement. Also, in your listenership, I'm absolutely sure that there are people who are affected more closely to this. You have a niece, a nephew, a son, a daughter, a parent, a sibling who's incarcerated or who has been or has come out from there and thought they maybe paid their penalty, only to find out that now they have a background record and I can't get an apartment, I can't get a job, I may not even be able to get ID, I can't get a driver's license because all these fines have racked up while I've been away. It affects almost everybody in some way, and it carries so much shame, not just for the one who goes in, but for the families of those who go in. What Straight Ahead Ministries is trying to do at the primary place is connect churches and Christians to this really untapped mission field of where kids are locked up and held in confinement and looking for Christ, but unless someone comes in and tells them, they're not going to find it. And so it's the ministry of the church, and we work to connect them to it, because I'm doubting that most people have any idea where juvenile jails are around them. They generally aren't big fenced-in areas. They're much more. They're not like the adult prison, but there are 60 of them in our state, so they're close to every one of your listeners, and that's what we do, is try to connect them into that place. And so you can contact us through our website, straightahead.org. Ed, who is our South Coast, covers New Bedford, Fall River, Taunton, Brockton, Cape Cod. E. Machado.
That's at straightahead.org.
Yeah.
Yep.
E. Machado,
That's
Machado, at straightahead.org.
Right.
And we will connect with you about how you might go in. You might want to be a prayer partner. and pray for the needs of these kids every week that they give. You may want to go in and lead a Bible study. We have recovery groups that we lead in there to mentor somebody coming out, to provide a job for somebody. You'd be willing to take somebody on.
So if someone has their own business, it'd be awesome if they could provide employment for some of these guys to help them transition in.
That's right.
Back into society.
That's
we
what
do
it
run
is.
a job readiness program called Straight to Work, where we kind of go over the soft skills and the principles of just work ethic and how to some of these young people have never had a job before. So sometimes we'll actually stipend or supplement their pay to get them on site working with hopefully a good mentor, hopefully a Christian mentor who can kind of take them under their wing and teach them some skills, hold them accountable, create a relationship with them. And that's one of the biggest, the tools in the straight ahead bag is that, we create relationships with these young people. We come in to offer them two things: is the gospel of Jesus Christ and the unconditional love of Jesus Christ, and create a relationship with them. And it works best when we can build that sense of community and family with them that a lot of these young people are lacking and have maybe joined the gangs for and sought out there in the streets. And so the secret to the success really is engaging the local churches and Christians to respond to that call.
What's striking to me now is, as I'm listening to you guys, you call them young people, kids.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're babies. I mean, late teens, early 20s. These kids have just gotten off path. You're not talking 50, 60-year-old men. You're talking young kids.
Yeah, you're talking about kids. And part of the challenge, a number of our staff have come up through. They were locked up as kids in the system. And now we're on staff working with kids. And something happens when you get into this system. You get locked up, and traditionally, if kids skip school, if they're truant, they can enter the juvenile system. And once they do that, now they're in a different scenario than the average youth out there. If they skip school again, it's a crime that they're locked up and extended their time for. A lot of kids who end up stuck in this system came in for something that was relatively minor, but once you get in there, you get with other kids who are more negative. Now you have a record, and it's really hard to break out of it. Most kids end up here. 90% have experienced severe trauma. They've been shot, they've seen somebody shot, they've been abused sexually and every other way. Hurt people. And kids who are traumatized, we know now that it does something to the brain. And a lot of delinquent behavior they've framed as it's trauma behavior. It's a way to shut down, protect myself. I'll hurt you before you can hurt me.
Right.
And so they don't sort of come in here, just like people don't, think they're going to be a drug addict when they're in kindergarten. There's things that contribute to them going in that direction. It doesn't give an excuse for it, but there are reasons that things happen. And the people you find in juvenile jails are kids. They've been experienced more than certainly the three of us sitting around this table have ever experienced, and probably more than most of our listeners.
A picture that comes to my mind talking about this is like some kid fell into a river and the river just washed him away.
Yeah, very accurate.
Washed him away.
Yeah.
Just no control. It just kind of became that.
Right.
Yeah.
And, boy, no
And the
structure.
majority don't have a caring, healthy adult who is crazy about them, believes in them when they don't believe in themselves. That is what makes a difference, not umpteen programs. Programs can be helpful, but as Ed said, they need an adult to walk with them, who's going to be committed to them, even when for a while they're not very committed to themselves or don't appear to be as such.
So what?
And their mind is kind of working on two almost conflicting paths, and in my experience, they're looking for a reason to throw in the towel and quit, and at the same time they're looking for a reason to hold out for some hope. and they're kind of scanning everything through that filter, right? Looking for sufficient and insufficient reasons why they should give up or not give up on themselves.
So let's break it down nice and simple. Guy gets out of jail, early 20s. The top 2 or 3 needs that he has as soon as he gets out, what would you say they are?
I'd first say support, a network of support.
Emotional support.
Caring,
Right.
Accessible, people who are going to be there for them.
Okay.
Guidance and someone to kind of...
And what does that look like? How does that happen?
Yeah.
Through volunteers, like you're mentioning?
I mean, that can happen in a million different ways, you know. I remember one of the young men I was just telling you guys about. I remember him coming out and, said, hey, I'll contact you guys in a few weeks once I get situated. And usually that once I get situated is like oh boy. It's kind of like, I'll come to church once I get my life right.
Yeah, right.
Kind of thing, right? Yeah. And what was really beautiful about it is I think that God let him see that he was quickly going to go the other way and end up back on that track, and he was aware of that because of some of the work that we get to do on the inside. He immediately contacted me and said, "Can you guys come and pray with me? I feel like I'm going to go back to jail in no time flat. I feel like I'm going to kill somebody." So we immediately responded to that, and he ended up inviting us to come to his house every Friday night for a Bible study. I think I shared this story with you, and you met that particular young man at lunch one time. But, and not long, he was inviting family and friends, and he lived with his girlfriend, and not long into that, God convicted him, and that him and his girlfriend needed to kind of make a move, and he didn't feel right about living together. And we just supported everything that God was unfolding to him. That young man is married today, with children, a homeowner, a professional tradesman. We just were there to one of the beautiful things about Straight Ahead that I was drawn to before I ever came aboard was Straight Ahead just tries to meet the need. We don't necessarily always have a strict plan. We try to respond to the need in live time and fill that and let God kind of direct that.
And Straight Ahead Ministry, I mean, I know it's costly to run a ministry like this. How do you get funding to keep everything going?
Yeah. Our funding comes virtually all from the Christian community, from individuals who support staff like Ed. Ed is responsible for raising a good part of his own budget here in the south part. Some are foundations, some are churches, some are individuals. So individuals, churches, businesses who see this as an important ministry, its lives, but sometimes people don't think about the statistics too. The U.S. government 10 years ago did a study, and I haven't seen a more recent one, but they said that the cost to society for a young person who drops out of school at age 16 and enters a life of crime, the hard costs in numbers, lost tax revenue, costs of incarceration, police, just the direct cost of one young person who enters a life of crime, between 1.7 and 2.1 million dollars. Now you think about if somebody exits that track, which in some ways the prison system is a profitable business. It gets 80% return, and it costs somewhere between $40,000 and $100,000 a year to lock a kid up.
Oh,
you can send 3 people to Harvard, and the cost of what it is to keep somebody in jail. And there's a lot of jobs that are provided in that whole system, and so it's not an easy thing to just dismantle. But a kid who exits that, and now his family, as Ed was saying, this one young man who got married has kids, his kids aren't going to have the same experience he had. He really broke the chain. The sins of the father go to 2 and 3 generations, but the mercies of God to 1,000. And that's the kind of work that we're in. Yeah, it isn't happen without investment, but and so people who support this are really turning the tide for generations.
Absolutely. We've got about 2 minutes left. You guys are available to do presentations at groups and churches. And they can get a hold of you. How do they get a hold of you again?
You can reach me. I'm the founder of Straight Ahead, Scott, S-C-O-T-T, at straightahead.org. You can reach Ed E. Machado at straightahead.org. Come onto our website, straightahead.org. We'd love to come. We speak in churches and with all kinds of groups, training around the country, and
you bring some of those success stories with you too.
Absolutely.
We bring young people with us.
Yeah. We think it's important for folks to meet these guys face to face. You can also reach us at our ministry number, which is 508-642-9287.
Okay. And also, I'm just thinking, as we got about a minute left to go here, you have some guys right now that are ready to be discipled, to come alongside, to maybe they're ready to go to work. Maybe there's some type of position that someone's business owners are listening today, and and you got some guys that are ready to go.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
And they're eager to learn.
That's right. What's your number again? 508?
508-642-9287.
9287.
Well, you know what? I wish we had an hour program, but we're going to have to do this again.
Sure.
Appreciate you guys coming by today.
Thank you so much.
Scott Larsen, Ed Machado, Straight Ahead Ministries. We had a great time. Again, website, we've got a few more seconds. I want to get that information out there as much as I can.
Straightahead.org is our website.
Okay.
And you can find us on Straight Ahead Facebook page as well. And Ed is E. Machado at straightahead.org. He's our South Coast, Massachusetts director.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for coming on board today. Really enjoyed having you guys today. Don't forget, tonight, right here at New Hope, 7 o'clock, worship begins. The preliminaries to the second coming of Christ. He's coming soon. And maybe that's why today's program is so important. Let's get these kids placed. Let's get them loved. Let's get them supported. Let's get them a job so they don't have to go back to jail. And really pray about that. Maybe go to your pastor. Have Scott and Ed come by and speak at your church. Thank you for tuning in today. I'll see you tomorrow for more of New Hope Radio.